Machiavelli the Don till I'm gone. He was saying this shit while he was alive. He was telling us. We were talking about it. Nigga, I'm a legend. I'm putting in mine. You better put in yours, because I'm a legend already.
Man, history a legend. You define me. John Machiavelli been.
With my clique looting, shooting and polluting your block with 15 shot cock lock to your knob.
Continues to keep vigil, and despite early reports that his wounds were not life-threatening, people at the hospital here continue to tell us.
Only Gab can do it like this.
Tupac's family. Had you ever had any, did they ever reach out to you? Did Miss Afeni, SHAKUR, did she ever, get in contact with you? Anybody from, Tupac's side ever reach out to you?
No, again, right before I published the book, I wanted to give people a heads up. So I went to an office in Los Angeles. I think the offices of a girl named Molly Manju or something to that effect, somebody from Tupac's camp, and she reached out and got me on the phone with a woman named Gloria, who I understand is Tupac's aunt and Afeni Shakur's sister, and just basically said, I've got this book, these are the allegations in the book, and the response was, thanks very much, appreciate your efforts, but we already knew all that. And so my impression from that statement was that nothing I was saying was something that they didn't already either know or believe to be true in regard to Orlando Anderson, TPD, and the Southside Crips killing Tupac.
Well, so basically that was, something that the family already had, got wind of. Wow, that's amazing, man. That's really, that speaks a lot of levels.
We have to keep in mind that after the murder, Afeni Shakur attempted to sue Orlando Anderson for his role in the murder. So, it wasn't new information for them. They had this information from the beginning and tried to pursue a civil case against it.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's very factual right there. I remember when she had a civil case, against Orlando. Whatever happened with that? They decided to drop it, or what happened to it?
Yeah, Orlando was going to attempt to countersue for defamation. And at the time, there wasn't really enough evidence or details to go in either direction. And so I think they both recognized the idea it'd be futile to pursue either side of that civil action.
Now, I have to bring this up because, we hear different things. What do you say to the people that want to discredit your murder rap theory and somehow think that Russell Poole had the case figured out before, his untimely death? What do you say to people that still, look at you with some skepticism, but look at Russell like he had all the answers?
Well, I think that what happens when you believe in something and you put energy into defending or arguing a particular position, and then something else comes along, you're kind of already invested in a belief, and so therefore it's much more difficult to dissuade you of that belief. And so, and Russell Poole came along long before I did and had put his theory out there, and it was a salacious theory. It's a theory that, captures your imagination. Dirty cops killing Biggie. And of course, Russell Poole didn't have much of a theory on Tupac. It wasn't something he was actively investigating, other than the idea that, maybe these murders were connected. But, his premise about dirty cops killing Biggie, there was some good circumstantial information to support that. And so to be fair to Russell, you have to look at all that. But what happened, what the public didn't get, was all the information that Russell was omitting that refuted his own theories. Now, there was nothing substantial to support these allegations against David Mack, his relationship with Good, and all of these other details that he built his theory on. Those are all easily refuted when you know all the information, when you have all the inside information. And that's why he was at odds with the LVPD and all the other investigators, because they were taking that information into consideration. They weren't trying to, force fit information into a pre-drawn conclusion or a foredrawn conclusion, which is what Poole was doing. So people just aren't informed about all the details. And then, insofar as my theory, it's not my theory. This is a theory that was forged together with members of all different police departments and different police, law enforcement agencies, all types of different investigators with different backgrounds. And this is the conclusion we all collectively formed based on actual evidence, not on circumstance. And so a person has to just look at the information in its totality, and they should draw the same conclusion that I and everybody else has within law enforcement.
Absolutely. I have a question for you that, I want answers to for the longest time, and I hope, you can give me some clarity. And I know I probably speak for a lot of people out there. Tupac's friend, some would say half-brother or step-brother, Kadafi, Jafula. My question is, I remember on the news that after the Tupac shooting, it came across the news that one of the members of Tupac's entourage saying that he could identify the shooter. And I remember the footage of him saying, yeah, I know who did it. I'm going to tell to you. It was on YouTube a couple years ago. Then we tried to find it. We couldn't find it anywhere. Like it disappeared off the face of the earth. He'd be standing on the strip. He was outside. Yellow tape was up. He was by the BMWs. What happened with, what Yak was going to tell the Vegas PD? How did the whole thing go awry like that?
Okay, so first of all, there was never a statement by him that he could identify the shooter. What he said was that he could identify the driver, which we now know was Terrence Brown. And his description of Terrence Brown was very vague. All he really said in his statement was, well, he had a face like a bitch. So, what do you do with that if you're a police investigator and your witness is saying, yeah, I could identify him again, he had a face like a bitch. This wasn't the shooter, this is the driver. But then Las Vegas PD starts to formulate their initial theory about Orlando Anderson, since he obviously had the motive to do the shooting, so he just got into a fight with Tupac earlier. And so then they say, okay, we're going to put these photographic lineups together, which we call six packs, and we're going to show Yapu Fula the people that we suspect may be involved, and see if he can pick anybody out like he says he thinks he can. And so when they got a hold of him and said, listen, we'd like you to come down, look at some pictures, see if you can identify anybody, he then refuses to cooperate any further at that point on the advice of death row attorneys. The death row attorneys had warned him, listen, we're no longer going to, actively help in this investigation. Everybody keep your mouths shut. And at that point, Las Vegas could force him to come in. And so he never saw the photographs. In those photographs would have been Orlando Anderson and potentially Terrence Brown and TCD. And that when he decides not to come forward any further, because death row attorneys know that they don't want the cops getting into the minutia of what's going on between these camps, because one thing's going to lead to another. Their hands are kind of tied. And then, of course, Fula gets killed sometime later.
But I don't even think it was, 2 months later or something like that?
Yeah, so I think Orangewood, New Jersey or something like that, Orange, New Jersey, and some unrelated drug situation from which other people were arrested, convicted, and punished for.